Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine, Brian, joining me in the panel today. And if you're, getting a little itchy for professional football, you saw Ohio State's opening game yesterday. We'll talk very briefly about that at the beginning of the program. You know that I'm not really hugely into college athletics because they refuse to pay the athletes, but still, that being said, there is something to be talked about. We will be talking a lot about the Browns during the course of the program. Let's start with the news that's just kind of around. We have the news that hits today, and the thing that really floored me. We talk about the issues of the Steelers and what kind of a situation the Steelers are in. Well, Juju Schuster, this guy is some kind of an idiot doing that crazy milk carton challenge that is going around social media where people, have you seen the milk carton challenge?
No.
It's empty milk cartons in essence, and they stack them up like a pyramid. You gotta hop around on them, and everybody falls, and it's like the epic fail moment. And here's their starting wide receiver doing this without clearance or permission from the organization. And of course, then there's Tomlin trying to basically say, we're trying to sit down and talk to this idiot, the same idiot who keeps going on TikTok and doing stupid things, and the same idiot who keeps dancing on other teams' logos, even though his teammates tell him, stop it, stop doing this.
And he got punished by the Bengals pretty goddamn good for doing it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't want to give any fodder to anybody, but the Steelers aren't that good anymore, and it'll be really interesting. And I knew you'd be here, Best Impact, you know something? You're absolutely right, and I was waiting for you to get into the chat room to say that you were right about Kaderl Hodge. Now about Demetric Felton, I don't know that you're right about that. But, I did not think the Browns were going to cut Kaderl Hodge. All right, so fair enough. The Lions, who need a receiver, got a receiver. And is he good enough to be a number one receiver? That's what he's going to be in Detroit. And I think people in Detroit don't have a number one kind of football team.
But give John Dorsey at least 2 years to really turn that team around. I mean, he started with a quarterback, and now he's trying to build up around him the guys that he knows can play.
And General Dog, I was wrong about that too. I mean, Cam Newton, I guess I understand it. It's not like any other team is really fast in picking him up, but, they're going to roll with the rookie in New England, and they feel strongly about him. We'll see what happens with a full speed game and whether he has any escapability from the inevitable blitzing that he's going to be seeing. But he's going to be literally learning on the job. It's baptism by fire. But yeah, I really do believe that when I'm wrong, I admit I'm wrong. The Kaderl Hodge thing kind of surprised me. But I was right about Dearness Johnson making the 53, and a lot of people were saying that he and Felton could not both. And I think the argument that I was having in the last program was that people wanted to say that Felton was listed as a wide receiver when the truth of the matter is he's a running back. So we actually only kept 5 instead of 7 wide receivers because Felton becomes the 4th running back, although he's going to be used as in punt return situations, from what I understand, and also in various third down kind of passing, extra receiver in the backfield kind of formations.
Well, and I think he's also doing kickoffs because Natson is on the practice squad.
Yeah, again, the kickoff returns between he and Dearness Johnson, I think you're probably going to wind up seeing a lot more of Demetric Felton in those situations. And I think it's important that they do, because, you can't afford, Dearness Johnson cannot afford to get hurt. And really, the same thing with Donovan Peoples-Jones, who in the year past was returning punts. You can't have him out on the field returning punts, because now he's one of your primary receiving guys. So, the Lions have Jared Goff to throw the ball to Kaderil Hodge. So, you got your, and I never really apologize for being wrong. I admit that I'm wrong. So apology, I don't know if you call it an apology or not. It's an admission that I was incorrect about that. And somebody had to go. And the fact of the matter is, with the glutted
Mistakes
wide
were
receiver,
made. We're reviewing the situation, and we will try to be better.
yeah, it's like, what the hell? I mean, there are going to be lots more things if you stick around long enough that I'm going to be wrong about. In addition to the Juju Schuster-Smith thing, which is just crazy, is Mike Tomlin losing control of this younger generation of players? And there are lots of rumors as well that Pittsburgh is still shopping, trying to find offensive line help, which certainly cannot serve Ben Roethlisberger very well in the early going this year. Former NFL players dead. Okay, I'll let you run with this because you like the death angle, Brian.
Well, it's not so much that I like the death angle. It's just, I remember when Keith McCants got drafted by Tampax Bay, and they were Tampax Bay back then with the creamsicle uniforms and shitty quarterback play. Not unlike when Jameis Winston was part of the team in the not so distant past. But he was a highly ranked guy. He was a Mel Kiper guy coming out of college, and never really lived up to the hype on those teams. But and then the other one is the receiver for
Dave Patton. David Patton was obviously, caught a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl.
Was on two. I think he was on 2 Super Bowl teams with the Patriots.
Yeah, he was a 3-time Super Bowl winner, David Patton. And, and what they're saying, if I'm correct, is that he died in a motorcycle accident. So when I saw the story this morning, they had no cause of death at all. So I believe, and if people want to, best impact, you can go on the internet and check to see if I'm wrong again. I've seen out of the corner of my eye that they're saying it was a motorcycle accident, but whenever you have the older football players, you start wondering about CTE. You take a look at a guy like Keith McCants, who obviously was a top-notch college football player, and the problems he was having for years with drugs was it associated with medicating himself because of various damages that he incurred during his years of playing football. I highly doubt that Keith McCants' brain is going to be donated to science, but this was an ongoing battle that happened just north of us here in St. Petersburg, Florida. The end came to him. And that's really kind of a sad thing. You hate to see stuff like this. But
he's the same age as my brother, which is really scary. And I'm 18 months older than David Patton. So
yeah, I mean, it does. It hits home, and you get on a motorcycle, I guess, and that's the kind of thing that can happen. And I don't know whose fault it was. I haven't gotten into the reading about that yet, so it doesn't really matter to me right at this moment. Ohio State, obviously yesterday.
Let's say they just survived. They survived the Minnesota game.
It's not the way that I looked at the game. I looked at the game maybe differently than others because there are passionate Buckeye fans, and then there are the mildly interested like myself. And I looked at this like, they're so much more talented. They have so much more team speed. PJ Fleck's trying to round out a roster there at Minnesota that has a chance to stay in games and win games with their running game. They don't have any wide receivers who are going to beat anybody down the field. Their overall team speed is way slow. And all Ohio State did. And I know that Ryan Day, he wins and that's wonderful. But if you look at a second time at that game, and it started out so poorly for Ohio State. Well, it started out with the big run by Williams, but after that, they started getting manhandled. And
Badly.
but what ends up happening is they start running drag patterns all over the field. These aren't even football pass patterns. They're just running as fast as they can down the middle of the field through zones. And Minnesota just simply didn't have the speed to stay up with these receivers. And I don't know. This is a classic case of like watching a heavyweight fight a light heavyweight. I mean, the light heavyweight might have some skill and chutzpah, nerve, guts, heart. But in the end, I mean, they're just flogged to death and beaten down by the size of the opponent. That's the way I looked at this game. And it will tell you that last year, Minnesota was not that good. The year before, they were. They were a 9-2 football team. Fleck did a nice job 2 years ago. Last year was tough because of the COVID thing. But I give Minnesota all the credit in the world for hanging in tough in this game and not quitting during the course of the game. But it was just not winnable when Ohio State just basically, with pass protection, and C.J. Stroud did not have what I would consider to be a great football game. It was very spotty. But when he had time, he would just loft the ball up in the air and somebody would run under it because there was nobody within 5-6 yards of them. In fact, after catching the football, they just kept right on running and nobody laid a finger on them. The speed differential was just incredibly, incredibly great.
Yeah, Wilson and Olave will definitely be playing on Sundays.
Yeah, but again, you're seeing them in a context where they're playing against a bunch of slow.
But that defense, oh my God, that's like the 2020 Browns.
Yeah, look, I'm not really. I wasn't high on what I saw, and I know that Tony the Calf is probably,
Oh yeah, he was mad at me because I told him in the first half somebody needs to fucking tear off Ibrahim's legs. Well, somebody did.
Well, I don't consider it funny at all. And if you're a Golden Gopher fan, he is by far your best football player. And when you're a ground first team, that's just an absolutely crushing blow. I have not heard the extent of the injury. A foot injury is all I heard, and that he was put in a walking boot.
Tony said it was an ACL.
An ACL? Why were they claiming it was a foot injury?
I don't know.
And why was he in a walking boot? I mean,
well, it could be an ankle injury. I don't know.
Yeah, somebody look that up, please, for me amongst the people viewing in. Find out what.
But if
happened.
it's a foot injury, there's a chance that he'll be back before the end of the season.
Yeah, but that's the last thing you want to see happen if you're the Minnesota Golden Gophers, is watching that player go down, because he's a legitimate running back, and he's a guy who's going to have look-sees at the next level for sure. And you feel bad because this just really hurts him in a season that would have been very important for his draft value, and anything that has to do with the legs or feet. With a running back, you hate to see that kind of thing happen.
Well, in that division of the Big Ten, they could have easily had 8 wins. Ended up with 8 wins and been competitive with Wisconsin.
And what they're saying is the foot, he appeared to hurt as he planted his left foot. He limped off the field, went into the tent. He emerged with a walking boot on his leg as he went into the locker room for evaluation. There was no update as of earlier today. So if there's anybody who knows, it might be, again, you should be looking this up, Captain Fierce, instead of, there's no such thing as a small injury when you don't know what in the hell it is. So until we find
Well, and it
out,
could be if it's a Liz Frank, then that's a season killer.
a Liz Frank, it would be an unusual circumstance. That the motion that creates that injury is usually something you find in a lineman, but he was cutting, and it's possible. Usually, it's a
There was
force that comes down on the foot that does that.
There was a running back that just suffered that this in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean,
and was
that
gone
would
for
be
the
absolute
year.
devastation. Yeah. So, there you have it. All in all, an unfortunate ending to, by the end of the third quarter, Minnesota, who kept fighting through all of this. I was not impressed with Ohio State's defense. And, after the game, a number of the players were commenting, you're not supposed to lose here at the Ohio State University. Well, you're going to have games, you're going to run over lame opponents, and then you're going to have to play some good football teams, and they got to get a whole lot better if they want to win against those good football teams.
And best impact, the Texans are kind of the Browns South. They're not my team, though. I don't know where you get that from. I've been a Browns fan since 1973.
Apologize. You're thinking of Stephen Rose. Apologize.
Don't make me
Best impact. Jeez. He was wrong. I want an apology now. Okay.
I need a rump out of that guy.
As far as the Browns' 53-man roster, besides Kaderil Hodge going to Detroit, what we got here is what we got, and that is a balance. All right. The whole idea of what the Browns accomplished here was a kind of, you have playoff experienced guys who are leaders. You have guys like Malik Jackson, Anthony Walker, and John Johnson III. You got a veteran like Troy Hill, but you got the rook Newsome, and Jadeveon Clowney, who's and they're talking about lining him up on the inside in certain packages in Cleveland. So you got guys who have been around, and you got the new guys as well. And it's going to take a little while for the defense to gel, and it's really going to be difficult coming out against the Kansas City Chiefs. But be that as it may, on the other side of the ball is this unbelievable confidence and stability that the Browns have not had on offense. Like, a continuity is a better word than stability. This continuity, out of the 22 people, 20 were on the 53-man roster at the start of last season. And the lone new faces on the 53, all of them were 2021 draft picks, which will not surprise anyone, because that the GM is going to put his guys on the roster. We'll see how well they play. But it really is incredible. When 22 of 25 offensive players who finished the last season are still with the team, that's the kind of continuity the Browns simply have never had, and it's really important. The draft is the other thing that becomes prominent in the 53, and I think Andrew Berry's made it clear that the draft is very significant. Richard LeCompte III and Demetric Felton, these lower round picks making the team, starts out the whole thing. Tony Fields II, really didn't participate much. He had a foot injury, but, there he is. And so, these guys are significant additions to the team, as well as, of course, the higher picks. So there's that as well. And this is still not a done deal, because, we've got, I believe, is it 11 or 13 now with a 16-man practice squad named in Cleveland?
I think they were at 11, I think.
And I thought they may have added 2, but I'm not sure. I mean, so there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be people off the practice squad who might get look-sees on practice squads elsewhere. There's a lot of movement still possible, but I say overall that I can't argue about the 53, the Kaderil Hodge thing. I feel kind of badly for him because he was a contributor last year when we needed help. And he is a good, solid Swiss Army knife kind of. He can block, he can get downfield. He's long. I'm not going to tell you this is a frontline number one receiver by any stretch of the imagination, but I wish him well, and I hope he does well in Detroit.
He was a great gunner. He could do a lot of stuff on special teams. He made big catches, crucial catches, and he always blocked downfield on running plays. So, and he was not just well, I'm just going to stand here and kind of pretend I'm blocking. No, he was actually driving his guy backwards.
So, yeah, one of the things,
and I wished him well on Twitter.
Yeah, they talked to Stefanski, and he's already in regular season mode, being as vague and evasive on answers to questions as he possibly can. Basically, the deal is this: unvaccinated players have to be tested every day, as opposed to unvaccinated players who can leave town for a period of time. You can't if you're an unvaccinated player. You have to be tested every day. So the NFL, meanwhile, has mandated 3 days off from players this Friday through Sunday. So this is what Stefanski referred to as recharging the batteries. And what he said was, it's mandated by the league. We have to charge our battery up. They have to be smart in their rest and recovery. We talked about it this morning. We're very mindful that we have 7 weeks until that mini bye after the Thursday night game, and we have 12 weeks until our bye. I mean, that's late in the year, and in a 17-game season, that's significant. As far as the coaching staff is going to work their balls off here to figure out more organizational kinds of things. This is not that they're going to be fiddling around playing with themselves. They got work to do.
And while we got a little dead air, congratulations to the two new dads, Mac Wilson and Hollywood Higgins.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that they were asking about was injuries, and there is nothing forthcoming from Stefanski. So if he ain't going to answer, I ain't going to be able to answer. No update other than to say that everybody is progressing, and that's the end of that. So that's what Kevin Stefanski had to say.
I think most of the guys that were a little bit dinged up are going to be available with this break between Game 3 and Week 1.
Let me ask you this, Brian. The Browns' record right now, if somebody had to force you with a gun to your head to say, what is the Browns' record going to be this season, regular season?
I'm sticking with 12. I said 12-5 after the draft, and I'm sticking with that.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing because every year I say the same thing. Last year was probably the most serious situation as far as the Browns.
And I said 10-6 last year.
Yeah, starting the season out in such a new system without real practice, it was a completely different situation. This year, it's a lot more favorable, but the schedule is tougher this year than it was last year. You could be a better team this year and end up with an 11-6 record and be worse than last year. It is entirely possible. But with that, I'll say that the Cleveland Browns, where they're going to be hurting, if there is a place to be hurting, is the defensive side of the ball, just because you look at the Browns on offense, even when they were just kind of going through vanilla work in the preseason, as little as we saw of them. I mean, they're just workmanlike. They know what they're about. They know what they're supposed to do. The offensive line are a group of guys who understand the scheme that they're playing in, and nobody is more aware of the fact that the Browns have to start fast against the Chiefs than the Browns themselves. You cannot fall behind Patrick Mahomes, and it's going to be a challenge. If the Browns do start out strong and fast, you might have a real shootout in that football game. That could be a real high-scoring football game. But the Browns have, but I feel more confident that the Browns can come out in the first 4 games, which is basically was always the first quarter. Now it's slightly less than the first quarter of the season. And I've always felt that those first 4 games really tell you the direction of the team. And when we lost as badly as we lost, 38-7 to the Ravens, it was like, oh my God. But you keep a tight asshole and you keep marching forward. And the Browns got it together. And, by the time they hit that 4th game,
but but last year they were the team that had the most continuity on their offense. So, of course, they were going to fucking, and they added J.K. Dobbins in the draft. So, they were much further ahead than the Browns. But I think the Browns are going to be in that situation this year.
Yeah.
So and much more competitive.
Yeah. And, what I see about them is they got a coolness, a calmness. They're not mouthy. They're not dancing on other people's logos. They're not doing that horse shit. They are workmanlike blue-collar players. This is the kind of team the Cleveland fans are going to love because they're going to roll their shirts up and they're going to get dirty and get into it elbow deep. That's the kind of team this is. And there's a lot of physical stuff going on up front. The questions that are being asked right now is whether Koromoa and Malik Mcdowell are actually going to start against the Kansas City Chiefs. And to me, who starts doesn't matter. It's all rotation and it's all keeping fresh bodies in the game. I can tell you this. You cannot give up ground yardage against the Chiefs and win the football game, because if they're in a situation where you don't know whether it's going to be run or pass, they're already tough enough with the pass that if you know it's coming, that it can hurt you. But if you're guessing, that takes all that forward push that the defensive line can give. If it puts them on their heels, makes it very, very difficult. So, if I had to guess what the Browns' record's going to be, I think it's going to fall somewhere between 11-6 and 13-4. And, and
which amazingly enough is 12-5.
Yeah. But I'll tell you this, that it doesn't matter if you get into the second season, it doesn't matter what your record was. It's how you're playing, how healthy you are at that moment. And the Browns have the caliber of players if they stay healthy and if the organization keeps a good positive attitude and if the players really ratchet it up. The Browns are capable of beating anybody. I think they proved that last year, and I think that it's true this year as well. So time will tell. So, I mean, again, guessing records at this point, it's a little bit... I don't know, a little bit premature in my mind. As far as Malik McDowell goes, we're taking a chance on a guy who's had problems, and we've done this before, and it has not worked very well in the past. You just kind of hope that this guy has put a little bit more, as he put it, faith-based in his life, because he obviously was extremely off course. And, he is incredibly strong, but he is very raw. And, you don't know what this all means, except that he needs to be a contributor. But I don't want to put the weight of him being a starter and playing a ton of snaps, when he hasn't even played in a true organized football game that is really an honest to God football game in 5 years. That's asking a hell of a lot from a guy. And I think that you're going to see him on situations, and they may in short down situations, as far as short yardage situations, he may be one of the guys who's part of that run stopping brigade because of his strength and his ability to stand up men at the line of scrimmage.
Well, and he was the one that drove the offensive guard for the Falcons right past the running back.
Oh yeah, I mean he's strong. There ain't no doubt about that. But he's going up against guys, right off the bat, who are very good offensive linemen and people.
Well,
who
and
are
their
solid players.
offensive line has been pieced together this year. So for the
Right.
Chiefs, so that may be a slight advantage.
So the only advantage that we have going into the game is if they're not quite on the same page yet, that could affect them. But again, all the more reason, stop the run, force them to throw the ball, because I would say our weakness defensively is the same thing that they have with their offensive line, is that it isn't that it's not good, it's a question of it's not quite ready. And, everybody goes through changes. We'll see what happens. As far as Koromoa is concerned, there are quarterbacks that I would like to see him blitzing. Patrick Mahomes is one that the blitz is not, in my mind, one of the great tactics to use against a guy who's as nimble-footed as he is. You would have to really have more help than just a blitzing safety or linebacker to get him out of the pocket and in a place where he can't do damage to you. I would rather see more solid coverage where he has to stand back in the pocket rather than scrambling out and has to kind of force the ball in to slightly heavier coverage. I don't know if we're ready for that yet, but Koromoa right now, his greatest asset is his speed and his ability to get into the backfield. And
I think he's going to be the one that actually is going to be tasked with trying to chase down Edwards-Helaire. I think he has the most foot speed because Edwards-Helaire is as fast as Denzel Ward.
Right. I mean, yeah, and then there's the odd case of Billings, who really was not top billing in the preseason. At 6'1", 328 pounds, he looks like he could lose some weight. He did not look strong to me. Then you have, Malik Jackson, and he offers, that veteran savvy, but how many actual snaps can he play before he falls apart? You really don't know the answer to that. Malik Jackson, these guys are, 6'5", 285, 6'6" for McDowell, 295. A guy like Malik Jackson is a space eater, and he's a guy who's going to, again, is not going to really put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, but is in there to really stuff the run. A lot of the Browns' problems defensively over the course of the last several decades have surrounded giving up multi 150-yard plus rushing games, too many 200-yard rushing games. So dangerous kinds of stuff. Do I think that they're both going to start, these two guys? No, I think Koromoa is going to be coming in specialty situations where he can do the most good. And I think the same thing is true with McDowell. They're
definitely going to play the matchup game. So whoever gives them the least unfavorable matchup or the most favorable matchup, that's who's going to be on the field.
And I'll tell you, the other thing is, the center, and I'm not familiar enough with the Kansas City Chiefs, but I'm going to get more familiar.
Isn't that's a guy they traded for, right?
Yeah, I mean, a guy like McDowell is a guy who will run you over. And, somebody who is good at dancing people off to the side and using leverage, strength, raw strength will not conquer leverage. However, if you're prone to the bull rush, then that's where you're that's where you're going to find McDowell. Is he is a bull rusher, and any pressure that comes from the interior part of the line is such a bonus. And we'll see who handles what better. It's just no different than Wyatt Teller, who really looked positively mediocre in Buffalo, and you put him into his own scheme and he's just a world beater. You just don't know with offensive linemen who come into a system what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are until it plays out on the field. So I see that the Steelers have acquired a cornerback to fortify their roster. They traded for Akello Witherspoon with the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle's getting a 5th-round pick in return. The other thing that's of interest with the Steelers is no extension for Joe Hayden. This is very much what the Steelers do historically, is they do not negotiate with players during the course of the regular season, but it does open up the question whether for the first time in his career, Joe Hayden would actually become a free agent. But again, the Steelers, I mean, there's a lot of question marks with that football team. A lot.
Well, they did the same thing to Rod Woodson. They do the same thing with a lot of highly talented defensive backs, especially. So this isn't new.
And, I would say that the Steelers have to protect their quarterback, and if their offensive line, I mean, their running game has already been damaged, but if their line can't hold, I mean, if they can't establish the rush, and Roethlisberger has to get rid of the ball in 2.6 seconds, it's going to be really hard for this. It's going to be all defense for the Steelers. And I guess that's the way Tomlin and Harbaugh like it. But it's going to be really hard to put up 30 points when you're kind of throwing fast and just moving chains. And if you don't have offensive line help, it's going to be really... there's just questions abound. It was interesting. I when you see names, you remember certain things. And when I was going through the college football scores, the University of Central Florida, UCF, that has had some success in football here in the last several years, fell behind 21 points to Boise State at home at UCF, and they ended up rallying to win the game. And it doesn't, I mean, everyone's saying, what in the hell are you talking about UCF for? And I just got done watching a documentary from ESPN about Marcus Dupree, the running back who played for Oklahoma under Barry Switzer when Switzer was the head coach. And the offensive coordinator that was brought into Oklahoma was a guy named Gus Malzahn.
Billy Joe.
And Gus Malzahn was a guy who came from Marcus Dupree's high school. And this was how much they thought Marcus Dupree, that they brought his high school coach in to be the offensive coordinator. But things did not go smoothly between Switzer and Malzahn. And then, of course, the wheels fell off after a magnificent start for Marcus Dupree, a career that never really got off the ground. And the bad side of football showing itself with all the agents coming after him and, bad decision making and the point of the family and the player. But Gus Malzahn is now the head coach of UCF. And it's interesting because Malzahn was looked at the time as a wunderkind, a guy who was an offensive genius who was brought in because he was one of these people who really got into the hurry up all the time. Everything was a hurry up offense. So he, like, throughout entire games in high school, would run like 2-minute offenses and just wear people down. And he brought that into the University of Oklahoma, and which was kind of weird because they were kind of a team that it just was a bad fit. Let's put it that way. And so I decided to look up a little bit about Gus Malzahn, and his history after the whole Marcus Dupree debacle was he ended up getting a head coaching job at Auburn. And he was there for a good number of years, and he did well for a period of time. But they ended up firing him. And, I started looking into what happened to him. I mean, he started out his first year. He left Oklahoma to take a job at Arkansas State, small school. He went 9-3. And after 1 year at Arkansas State, and the thing about Gus Malzahn was that he was a shaker and a mover. And he had something to do with the whole Marcus Dupree thing too, and that he used Marcus Dupree to advance his career. Gus Malzahn, with his hurry-up offense, was hired 1 year later by Auburn. He went from Arkansas State to Auburn and went 12-2 in his first season, right? He went, but in subsequent years, he went 8-5, 7-6, 8-5, 10-4, 8-5, 9-4, and then 6-4. And they finally just shit canned him. I mean, it was enough was enough. And there were a lot of reasons that were speculated as to why he was let go. But the main thing was he just was not able to compete with this consolidation of power within the SEC. Clemson and Alabama, these teams at LSU, just outdistanced and even though Auburn was a pretty good football team, wasn't good enough. So Malzahn,
Well, and Florida was also on the uptick then too.
Yeah,
because he was there with when Emmitt Smith was running, was a senior or junior running back, and then after that was when they hired Steve Spurrier to take over, and those teams won all kinds of games.
Right. I mean, a guy like Malzahn going from Auburn and going to UCF, that's a big step down. But again, UCF managed to come back and beat Boise State, so good for them. I don't know that there's anything else I wanted to say about that, except it's interesting how names come back, and you see these documentaries, and Marcus Dupree is from another era. That's a name I remember from just being the most dominant running back in college football, a surefire can't miss, and the way his career turned out. But, Barry Switzer then ended up going to the Dallas Cowboys. We know the story there.
Here again, he blew out his knee on a goal line play.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to happen and when.
And ironically, that Rams team, they ended up with Charles White, our former number 1 pick, and Marcus Dupree, and I think Kurt Warner from the Seattle Seahawks as part of the ground chuck attack.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I want to switch gears before I get out of here because there were a couple of things that just, again, the National Football League, for all of the disagreements I have with CTE, the lack of acknowledgement by the league, the men who own the franchises and some of their personal liabilities, as a fan of sports, that's the best sport, because if you're a fan of a given team, there's always a chance your team can get better. That's not the way it is in baseball, and it's not the way it is in basketball. Here in the NBA, It's really funny. It's win at all costs when you have a window that's this open. And the Brooklyn Nets are a team that was supposed to do so much more than what they did. They didn't do it. And now the league is just absolutely fixated on doing whatever they can do to help this team out. And the Nets, LaMarcus Aldridge has been cleared suddenly after heart concerns. All right. He retired with heart concerns 5 months ago. He's returning to the Brooklyn Nets on a 1-year, $2.6 million deal. I mean, he's 36 years old. You know, everything but the kitchen sink they're throwing at this. DeAndre Jordan was just shipped off to Detroit by the Nets, and because they don't want to pay him, they're just constantly looking to add on whatever they can add on, depth pieces for this organization. And you look at this and you say, you know, it's so obvious where all the players are going. And it was funny because the other thing, which was the trade of DeAndre Jordan to the Pistons, the Pistons don't want him. DeAndre Jordan's got to get a buyout, all right? So the Pistons wanted the 4 second-round picks because the Pistons are in perpetual rebuild mode because they're a losing organization like the Cavaliers are in the NBA. And get this, if DeAndre Jordan reaches free agency, which you know he will, why would he take a buyout? The Los Angeles Lakers are looking to sign him. And you just want to throw up in your mouth. Honest to God. It just makes you want to fucking vomit. As far as the Cleveland Cavaliers are concerned, you know, I know, Evan Mobley. And is Evan Mobley what the Cavaliers need? Well, I can tell you Taco Fall sure as hell is not. I don't know exactly what the Cavaliers are doing. It's kind of like nobody's running the ship. Evan Mobley, I took a look at during the summer league, and there's not a lot I can tell you except that he's light in the britches. He's going to get pushed around a lot, and he's not ready for prime time. And he may be the number 3 pick in the draft, but what is his upside? What is his ceiling? And I always like to take a look at young players and say, okay, if he's everything that he could possibly be, who does he remind me of? And the one thing he doesn't remind me of is a guy who's going to wind up being a center in the NBA. He just doesn't remind me of that. You know, I think 2 weeks ago I was saying Larry Nance Sr., you know, who was a 6'10" guy, but who really liked to play perimeter basketball and had a feathery touch and a fadeaway. And Evan Mobley is 6'11", 7 foot. They call him 7 foot. I think he's closer to 6'11". And he has the ability to pass the ball, to dribble the ball, get up and down the floor in transition. And, you know, it started making me think of Chris Bosh. And that's kind of the body that Evan Mobley has. He's got a Chris Bosh body. And he's a guy who's going to make his living when he gets better at the game in the mid-range and the perimeter, and is going to be able to learn as he gets a little more physical strength to back people down. That is the best comparison I could make to a player if everything became just perfect for him. I don't like to look at the downside because the downsides, we've seen too many of those in Cleveland. But I guess he's right-handed. He's not left-handed. Other than that, Chris Bosh would be the guy. Are you kidding me, Bronk? Jacksonville has claimed Kyle Lauletta. I'm seeing teams claiming former Browns guys who weren't very good, and they're all the shit teams. The shit teams who were just desperately trying to add whatever they could add. Are you kidding? And it's going to be interesting to see Jacksonville start out the season.
Well, they know where he can torch the shit out of their secondary, so.
At any rate, I'm done talking about what I'm talking about. And I want to get out of here a little early because I got things I got to do. But we got another week next Friday. I'll be back again on Monday, but next Friday we'll be actually doing a prediction show. But I want to warn you that my house here is going to get re-roofed. And putting a whole new roof on here, there's going to be all kinds of fucking construction sounds. And I'm going to do the show over all the hammering. All right. And I'm hoping that by 6 o'clock, they'll be winding down. But this is going to carry on for 4 fucking weeks because everybody works in shifts. And down here, there's such a demand for home services. I just want you to know that thank God the Browns games are all on Sunday and they don't work on Sunday. So all those podcasts, as far as the halftime and postgame shows, will be void of background noise. I wish that I could say that about what's coming up in the next few weeks. Just hang with me, man. My house needs a fucking roof. And I'd rather have that than complete silence.
Or a nice big torrential downpour behind your fucking head.
Every quarterback, Baker's getting a lot of credit, best impact. His face is all over commercials on television. He's getting all positive talk from the talking heads.
Doug Deacon is also in the new commercial. You guys need to check that out. It's pretty funny.
But he's got to continue to play smart, heady football. And if you're comparing him to the legends of the game, then you're just putting way too much stock into a player who's still very young. But do I think he's getting no credit? No, I think that's an exaggeration. That's what a fan would say. But if they don't win, yes, the blame will always fall first on the quarterback. And if you see that happen in Jacksonville, and you see Trevor Lawrence, people start scratching their head and saying, I really wonder if he should have been the 1 pick overall. That'll start. And it's not because of him. It's because the team is so poor. We will see.
Well, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, Amsterdam, as a matter of fact, it is. Barrel tile. It's going to be a lot of noise. Clank, clank, clank. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. Back again on Monday. And we'll be just bullshitting, getting our way toward the weekend where we finally start playing real meaningful football games. I'll see you again Monday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastureheads. Good night.
See you Monday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.